bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Ball played into the box. There's Tyler Black with a shot and a goal!
Hear from players and coaches to team executives.
Pirelli crossing, settled near the penalty spot, and a shot! Oh! The finish is remarkable! Rebellion!
From the boardroom to the pitch, this is USL All Access.
Welcome, everybody, to an over-caffeinated edition of USL All Access. Happy Tuesday night, wherever you might be celebrating. With Devon, Kerr, and Emmett McConnell. At the controls, as always, Mike Watts. 2 weeks left in the regular season. Got the youngest player in league history debuting on Sunday night. Danny Cruz had some comments about his Louisville City side that deserve a deep dive. We'll go through all the playoff implications of what's coming up. Final segment, of course, mailbag, and also what might decide the number one overall seed. With 2 games remaining, the Rowdies host the Riverhounds on Saturday night, and we'll get you ready for that matchup as well. Devon, you and I called the Open Cup last week, and then you disappeared. Suddenly, you're drinking coffee, and I'm gobsmacked, as Lewis Neal would say.
I'm like a whole new person, and not necessarily in the best of ways. I jumped on the caffeine train, which, as we know, based upon my speech patterns, and experience in the past, it only happens once or twice a year, right?
It only took a third kid to go with 2 dogs and a wife and 3 jobs for you to finally be like, no, it's time to be a coffee drinker.
What did I say? Dad's coming home, human and quadrupeds alike. Wait, but you caffeine-wise, we should call it caffeine. Yeah. You don't do coffee, right?
I do from time to time. What I've done, Dev will tell, nasty habit when you're drinking like 2 Monsters a game.
I support it, though.
You did, but, I don't think that was great for the ticker, so I turned that down a little bit this year.
I was going to say nobody likes a quitter, but in certain situations, that has to happen.
Dev, let's chat about a young player that came into the league officially on Sunday. Had already made the bench once, had been signed to a USL deal earlier this year. Davian Kimbrough debuts for Sacramento. It's been on ESPN. It's been all over the place on social. 2-0 win for Sacramento against Las Vegas. He becomes the youngest American to play in a first-team professional match, period. 13 years, 7 months, 13 days. He signed an Academy deal a few years ago. He passes Axel K by a couple months for this sort of honor. Some would call it dubious because everyone thinks back to Freddie Adu. He's already been called Mexican under-16 camps. He's a potential dual national. He's from California. Dev, let's start with thoughts on this from you, and then I've got a handful of things that have gone through my head as well.
I would start with, first off, hats off. It's incredible. Anytime you set a record, really cool. And you have to acknowledge that. To me, that's the most important thing on the beginning front, right? Like, okay, great, this happened. It's been coming for quite some time. I can remember when he was actually signed to the first team contract. I don't know if you recall, you and I were actually at Summer Showcase.
Yes.
For the Colorado Springs FC Tulsa game. And John Jacobs, front office PR guy, comms, amazing for Sacramento Republic. He reached out, and we kind of got not just the cliff notes, we got a bunch of details behind it. And we knew that this would happen, we just didn't necessarily know when. My mind goes a couple of different directions, and I feel like maybe my viewpoint is a little different because I'm a parent. My first thought is we need more of it in terms of youth interaction. I'm not necessarily sure about the 13-year-old thing, but I'll get there in a second. If you look historically about where our youth national teams rank against other countries, we do pretty damn well until about the 18-year age rank, right? And then there's a massive drop-off, and then we're chasing everybody else. When I say massive drop-off, everybody can go and look and, the national team is ranked in the top 10, and, we've beaten so-and-so. Correct. But we're not regularly appearing in quarterfinals, semifinals, and certainly not in the final in the World Cup. Our youth national teams have progressed to that area. Why is that? Number one, coaching. Coaching has gotten better. Number two, it does have something to do with a sort of separation of church and state where college and pro players kind of separate. They go a different direction. That's another conversation for another time, but it is a point. Number three is the actual experience for the development of a young player to be involved at the professional ranks. It is far too infrequent that we see players 18 years and under not being involved, right? So guys in the USL Championship that we've seen in there, James Sands, right? I understand he was a loanee player, but he was a guy that back then Louisville brought on loan. John Hackworth brought him in from NYCFC. Jonathan Lewis was another one where you kind of looked and went, okay, it's a pro player, but he's getting reps. They're young. They're youth national team players. I think they've done well for themselves. If you talk developmentally, and I know your brain is probably going to go this way as well, Mike, so I'll leave that in your area, but you have to look at Jonathan Gomez with Louisville City. You have to look at Josh Winder with Louisville City. Certainly the handful of products that have come out of Orange County that we've talked about. People's complaints have been, is it too young? I personally don't think it's too young because you're not saying he's a pro player, you're in the fire, and good luck. There's going to be a balance here where people are going to have to watch him because he's developing as a person as well. The physical side, 5'11", carries enough weight. That kid's got bigger shoes than I have, and I'm 39 years of age. Let's get that out of the way. I mean, that's a solid 11 plus, I could tell. So physically, I'm not concerned. Usually at that level, Mike, it gets to a rate of play. It's, are you capable when you've been the biggest fish, a shark, if you will, for your age group or the people that you've been playing with, which he's been playing up for a while. When you then go into shark-infested waters, how do you survive? Well, that's where the mental side of the game comes in. Rate of play, better decisions, quicker decisions, and getting up there. I don't expect to see him making regular appearances. I could totally be wrong, but this is something where you slowly move him into an environment to help make sure that the development of every side of this person is tailored to his career path to help him. And it's not just going to be him. It's guys in the front office at Sacramento Republic. It's going to be his parents. It's going to be the player. It's going to be the teammates around him. This is not just, oh, he's turned pro, he's off the deep end. Respectfully, kind of like we saw with Freddie Adu. Please stop making that analogy. We are in a very different stratosphere than what went on, and a lot of people have learned from the rights and wrongs of what went on in that situation. I'm off the soapbox for now. Mr. Watts, I give you stage.
Yeah, so we're speaking about Davian Kimbrough, who at age 13 just debuted for Sacramento Republic on Sunday. Couple thoughts went through my mind, and I'm ultimately I didn't play the game like Devon did. I'm not a parent like Devon is, and so many parents that are listening now thinking, wow, 13. Because ultimately they're guys who are 2.5 times his age on his roster. Sorry, Roro. I think that...
Sorry. I knew you were going to go there. I just wanted to hear you say it.
You know, ultimately, I think back to 2022 under-20 CONCACAF. It was both World Cup and Olympic qualifying for Paris because they combined the two tournaments together. I spoke to Mikey Varas, who actually spent some time in the Sacramento Academy before he went to Dallas.
Yep.
And now he's with the under-20s. One of the conversations I had with him was this exact point about not necessarily Freddie Adu, but the idea that these players coming in are at such a different level than where we were 10 years ago when he was starting to work around the academy culture here in the U.S. And even the time that he was with North Texas, you know, Dallas arguably has the best academy in terms of pumping out homegrowns as anybody, and they've done a better job in recent years turning them into players that have elongated careers. With that in mind, the professional culture around the game and the structure that it gives is far beyond where we were, whether it be Freddie Adu, and I've had coaches who were around that situation tell me they were basically told, you need to play this kid. Even at times where they didn't feel like he was their best option. So that's not going to happen here. I'm also thinking about the really long conversations I had with Mark Parsons, with Rhiann Wilkinson, and now with Mike Norris at Portland Thorns about Olivia Moultrie, the player who ultimately had to sue the NWSL for the right to come in at such an early age to the Portland Thorns. When she first signed, there was all the hullabaloo about the contract. Ultimately, once that was done and she was allowed to join the team, the next step of that was she didn't make the bench for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, she'd get in these international games. You know, we've seen Red Bull do a lot of that. Like everyone that played on the Red Bull 2 team that won the title in 2016 had played against Chelsea the year before. Got into the ICC women's tournament, would get into preseason, play in the Challenge Cup in later years. So there was this drip feed of becoming a pro where you have to be able to make it through training. You have to be able to deal with the locker room culture. Then you start getting a couple of sub appearances. And now we're looking at Olivia Moultrie and going, this could be a star for the U.S. national team. The child has become a genuine, important piece of a team that could win the NWSL Shield this year at, you know, still not old enough to buy a lottery ticket. Ultimately, what I don't want to see is players like this brought in to be the lottery ticket. And what I can say with complete assuredness is, in the same way that the Thorns, from a sporting perspective, recognized her talent, but did not view this as a money grab or a unique way of getting a headline. They viewed it as, we believe we're the best structure and culture to help her grow into the eventual star we think she can be. When you look at Mark Briggs and Todd Donovan and overall the Sacramento culture, the Sacramento facilities, the Sacramento winning culture, and the professionals in their locker room, that's the one thing that I'd point everybody to. Not every team in the championship is prepared to bring in a 13-year-old. Sacramento, you could argue maybe San Antonio, although their style probably wouldn't lend itself on field. Louisville, that's about it. Where I'm going right off the bat. Maybe Tampa Bay, maybe you can go down the list, but like those are the first couple where you go like everything is there for them to succeed. Hence Josh Winder and now Davian Kimbrough. Yep. So I've just been mulling this over quite a bit in the last 24 hours. I've been thinking about it since, as you mentioned, we spoke to JJ in my hotel room. No reason Devon was there. We were doing a hit for Sirius.
The fire show from the fire alarm from the freaking from the hallway, the stairwell. That was so great.
Yeah. So no, I don't know if I've missed anything here, Dev, but really I based a lot of my thoughts on this on organization and coach being prepared to bring a 13-year-old and deal with their unique needs as much as the 13-year-old being prepared to come into a pro environment. It's hand in hand.
So I do have experience with this personally in the sense of I was the age gap argument. I was well out of my realm when I was 14 years of age and I was playing for a U19 team. Now, I had always, basically from like 13, 14, I started playing up more regularly. I'd always guest appeared for our older age group. My team was really, really good growing up at the youth level. The one above us was kind of like making their way into it. They actually ended up being better than us, but I would guest play for them a lot. My team disbanded. We all kind of went our separate ways. And when I was 14, I had gone to another organization for the first half of the year. The second half, a coach from my childhood club, Team Boca, came and said, "It's time for you to come home. You don't belong there," where I was. I didn't want to come back because everybody that I grew up playing with was gone. The team was now crap, I'll be honest. And so he said, no. It's time for you to get away from the age group that you're in. You've far surpassed that. I was 14 years of age. I was in 8th grade. I was in the spring year. The fall would have been my freshman year of high school. I did not belong with those people off the field. Think about a 14-year-old and where they're at from a maturity standpoint compared to a kid that's in a senior year at high school or a freshman year in college. Very, very different from a lifestyle standpoint. But playing-wise, I could play. Now, there are a lot of situations where people were faster than me. There are tons of situations where they were bigger. My freshman year of high school, that fall, I was only 5'3". I was tiny growing up. I mean, tiny compared to a lot of people around me that have maybe surpassed me. I wasn't small, but I wasn't the 6'5+ person that I am now. And where I'm going with this is I wasn't in the 11 regularly to start with. I wasn't treated the same way as every other player was, Mike. And it got to a point where it was, and I know we need to wrap here, but just understanding that you needed to be handled a certain way. And I look back on the coach now and I was like, this guy, he gave me a run for my money. He pushed me to places that made me feel mentally really uncomfortable. And yet it was the best thing for my growth pattern. When I say mentally uncomfortable, there were probably phrases used on the field in training that he would be jailed for in this day and age. However, it made me stronger, but it wasn't an everyday thing. They have an environment there, to your point, and then I'll get out of the way, that has set them up where you've got people that can nurture him when need be, that can push him, certainly, when it is an absolute necessity. And most importantly, in my opinion, the players around him respect him. If he was just brought in and this was a song and dance circus PR BS thing, they would have a real issue with guys like Roro, with guys like Luis Felipe Fernandez in the midfield, Danny Vitiello in goal. They would not carry respect for him. They would not allow him, and they would send that message very early on in training. That is not the case here. The first person that came over to him when he was getting ready to come on the field was Roro Lopez, who was not getting subbed off. He sprinted directly to the sideline, gave him a hug, shook his hand, and basically said, let's go do it. Ran back and then brought the kid on the field with him. The rest is history. I can't wait to see where this goes in the future. Everybody, it's 2023. Feel free to start turning the corner. Quit being negative Nancy's. Get on the positive train and help this young man succeed.
Yeah, a couple other things, 3 really quick points. For one, he signed an academy deal in 2021, so this is his 3rd year being around the first team in some capacity, which is crazy. So it's not like he just got here. Youth national team-wise, let's not forget one point about Moultrie, still allowed to go to the 16s and the 17s with the U.S. for the Thorns. I'm very confident that Sacramento will do what's best for the player because you are not required in non-FIFA windows to give players away for youth national team duty. So hopefully they should have no issues there. That'll allow him a little bit of time around his age group. Finally, Sacramento does not care about headlines. They never have. They're here for stars, and they don't have one in a decade. They sell out
their stadium without anything. They're fine. Yeah. They sell out their stadium when they weren't playing well, and they were at the bottom of the Western Conference. How do you think they're doing without a 13-year-old sitting atop the West in the number 1 spot? Just fine.
This is no joke. All right, Dev, we don't have a ton of time left for this first segment. I do want to hit this story before we go. Leo Fernandez returned for the Rowdies this week. He did not play, unused substitute. It was against Loudoun. It was at home. The reigning MVP suffered a ruptured Achilles at the end of February in a preseason match. It's been 7 months, and he's available to play. How crazy is that?
It's a freaking joke. We talked about this a little bit last week, that he had been in training, and they were expecting to get him back and that he would eventually become available. I actually didn't necessarily think it was going to be on the weekend when we talked about it last Tuesday. But to me, is this not another head turner where it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. I am so pissed off if I'm on another team right now that they are just continuing to add more and more firepower to what's going on down the stretch here. The Rowdies, I keep telling everyone, I still think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. I know Pittsburgh Riverhounds are going to have something to say about that. We're going to preview that in a little bit. But again, they get Leo Fernandez back. If they get 75% of what he's capable of the rest of the season, thank you very much for coming.
Yep, so Leo is back. Congratulations to him, and well done to the medical team. Regrettably, Joe Malfa, guest of the show, friend of the show, guest host of the show, probably thinks this means Aaron Rodgers can play in the Super Bowl. But, hey.
You'll never get that far, Joe. You're a Jets fan. You know better. You know better.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the key results of the weekend, take a look at the playoff races. Championship has 2 to 3 games to go, remaining on who has the games in hand that'll be played tomorrow. So we'll chat about it all on the other side of the break here on USL All Access.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back to USL All Access, where we remain very young at heart with Devon and Emmett. Mike, let's chat about some of the results of the last week because we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it. Let's start with Louisville on the road in Albuquerque. They fall 2-0. Swartz in the 32nd. Hernandez scores and then gets immediately sent off with a quarter hour to go.
What are you doing,
New Mexico finishes down to 9 men, and Louisville still don't manage a goal. Dev, we could talk about altitude and we could talk about tactics and we could talk about a lot of things. But Danny Cruz made maybe the most flame-throwing insinuation that I've ever seen from him in public. The entire evening was a disgrace, Cruz said. I don't think it had anything to do with tactics. I think it had everything to do with desire, heart, and quality on the ball. Dev, Louisville has 2 games left. They're in 5th. They can move to 4th. They probably won't go to 6th. What do they need to do these next 2 weeks to rectify that?
Well, first of all, we said last week, and for people that didn't catch the episode, we said that they're basically going to finish 4th or 5th. They're going to play Memphis no matter what. That's still the case. Do you care if you play them home or away? The way that they're playing right now? Absolutely. You want to be at home. You want to be at Lynn Family because when your level of performances is so inconsistent, you need to find a way to give yourself that extra spark, that motivation, the ability to pick yourself off the mat, if you will. Now, what's funny is they're 8-5-2 at home. They're 6-6-5 away. Points-wise, you're at 26 points at home. You're at 23 away. They're only 1 game difference when you compare home and away. But it does propel you to a different place. And the field at Memphis, right? And some of the history from last year. I know some of the faces have changed. And, the new coach in Memphis and everything, Ben Pierman took people with a battery. People left. I don't care.
A lot of them didn't.
Yeah. A lot of them didn't. They still dislike each other. There's no love lost. And that was a first-round matchup last year. If you're Louisville, you don't want to be on the road. So you still are chasing the number 4 spot, regardless of whether or not you can chase down the battery, which they ain't going to do, and they can't, and whether or not Birmingham or Indy would be able to catch them, which I don't think they will either. I don't see Louisville dropping. They've got a 4-point lead over Indy with 2 games to go. We've said for a while now that Louisville would be fine. They're going to make the playoffs. They'll be fine. Last week was the first time that I had ever said to you, Mike, is this who they are?
Yep.
And embrace it as a fan. I don't see that being the end of the world. Again, to recap, one part of it is if you don't know Louisville City, they are the poster child for USL Championship. Eastern Conference finalist every single year since 2015. They've made the final 4 separate times. They've won it twice, including last year when they went to the final and lost to San Antonio. There have been so many ups and downs for them. It's form, it's injury, personnel, extended periods of time where they were unavailable, can't score. That's certainly been something that has plagued them all season long. But I've never seen a team on a consistent basis where it just feels like the energy isn't there. And for Danny Cruz to come out, he's a straight shooter, Danny, but he also does a really good job of protecting the organization and his players. For him to come out and shoot a message like this makes me a little worried for what could be in the future. But the counter argument would be on the other side of that is I probably wouldn't have anybody else on the sideline in a situation such as this that I'd entrust more, for the most part, than Danny Cruz to get the best out of the players currently. It's a gut check time. 2 games. Let's go.
When you verbalize something like that, given all we know about Danny's post-game commentaries,
yeah,
that's a first. That was a clear message, and it needs to be received. It needs to be received this week because you're going to go to Tampa in 2 weeks. If you get blown off the face of the planet by Rowdy's team that potentially thinks they can win the number 1 overall seed, it does not portray well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. So we have 8 going in, right? Right now, yep. Right now, the first round matchup would be Memphis versus Louisville, okay?
Yep.
Pittsburgh would play Miami, Tampa, Birmingham, Charleston, Indy. Where I'm going with this is their next game, the 4-5. Am I wrong that it wouldn't it be against that side of the bracket? Is it the 1-8 or is it the 2-7?
2 and the 3 match up. 2 and 3 would match up. 1 and 4 stay on one side of the bracket because if everyone wins against the better seed, in theory, the 1 gets the best draw.
1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5. So if 1, 2, 3, 4 and win, then
1 plays 4.
1 plays 4, 2 plays 3. Okay.
Yep.
I did it backwards there.
But
Sorry.
that in mind, it's out of your hands now in theory. You'll either see Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay on paper. Maybe you see Charleston. Maybe they're upsets galore. But, finishing 4-5, you're going to probably get the 1 seed. And if it's Tampa Bay who just beat you 2 weeks prior, don't love that matchup.
And a Pittsburgh team who beat you in July.
Correct.
They drew earlier in July. And then, they didn't play the Rowdies earlier this season because the second matchup is coming. So you have 1 point or 2 points from 3 games against those teams.
Right.
Like if it is uncharted territory for us to have a conversation about Louisville City in this manner this late in the game.
Yep.
We've never had it.
By now, you've done the numbers in August, late August, September, October. They don't lose. This was the biggest blip in the history of September Louisville City or October Louisville City.
Yeah, their form is always not warming or heating up. They're usually streaking by now.
Yes.
Their final 10 games, it's crazy. Double digit. I remember that they had, I think it was in the final 10 or final 15 games of the season going from the end of the year into postseason that since 2015, it's something crazy, like 4 or 5 years where they've had at least double digit unbeaten runs.
Yep.
I mean, to be fair, you can't hit double digits, but you could get to 6 or 7.
You could.
To the final.
All that matters.
Okay.
Dev, by the way, we answered a mailbag question right there. Mailbag.
Mailbag!
There he is. All right. San Diego knocks off Monterey 4-1. Loyal clinch a playoff spot, second win in 11 days against Monterey. Let's be abundantly clear. If Monterey had won both of those, they would have been in a home playoff spot. San Diego would have been on the outs. And yet, Damas hat trick. All I'm thinking is, boy, what if Damas gets hot right now and runs this sucker right over the finish line? Bury them with the cup.
That ain't going to happen.
Hey, I'm not totally willing to give up on that theory, but it's tough.
How many goals does he have in the final 3 games of the season?
2, 1,
maybe 1.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all I got. I look again. I go back to the fact of even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
That blind squirrel has found like 25 nuts in 2 years.
Oh, that's kind of fair.
Yeah, he runs around like a banshee, but it's not to say he doesn't know how to finish.
Yeah, but I would say that I was talking about San Diego, not Damas.
Oh,
I was not calling out Damas. I don't want to fight that battle, but I'm saying San Diego in general. Like, unfortunately, we go back to the same thing that come hibernation time, that stockpile is it's dwindled down, hasn't
it? There are fewer nuts.
They play El Paso tomorrow.
Yep, that
is El Paso.
That is their final quote unquote game in hand.
Good luck with that.
It is an important one. If they get a win in El Paso, hey, all bets are off. They can go climb a little bit here, but they won't get to the top 2. But they can climb a little bit.
All of a sudden, El Paso have 1 loss in the last 5 because, like we've been saying, of course they're going to make the playoffs and turn it around.
Yeah, right. Phoenix did clinch 1-1 draw against Orange County. Emil Cuejo. 25-yard lightning bolt. Holy Lord, 85th minute game-tying goal. Indy also clinched, defeating Detroit. Any comment on those, or do we move on?
I would say that I still go back to the same thing we said last week. You're now 4 games in the last 6 where they've only put 2 shots on target. It was the previous 3 were 14, 13, and 13 in terms of total shots. The previous 3, they only hit the target twice. Same thing tonight, although the amount of opportunities dwindled 8. I'm concerned for them.
You're concerned for?
I'm concerned for Phoenix and their attack.
Yeah.
It's gone quiet. For a team to be that potent for such a, I don't want to say small window. I mean, it was probably right around 10 or 12 games. but to all of a sudden be shutting down at the most important time. And Bobby Dooley did say that he felt like they were going to be able to work themselves into a top 4 spot. Well, they worked themselves into a top 4 spot.
Now they have to keep it.
Now they got to keep it because you got to deal with Orange County and Colorado Springs.
Dev, how many goals do Manuel Arteaga and Danny Trejo have in the last 3 games?
None.
0.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about the Golden Boot later because Dikwa bagged a brace against Tulsa, as we all anticipated, of course.
Literally said it just like that, by the way. Did we not say 2? 100%.
I mean, we may have suggested that there'd be pens involved, but no pens involved in the making.
Crystal ball. It's not a crystal ball. I'm staring in that freaking mirror.
Yeah.
That Cinderella had in there, whoever was going on. Snow White. Who had
that may be enough from Dikwa.
I don't want an apple now, by the way.
Okay. Dikwa, 19 goals. Cal Jennings, by the way, scored against Loudoun for Tampa Bay, 17. Trejo's stuck on 17. Tanny Oluwaseyi, he got a goal against Oakland.
Got that wrong.
He's to 16. Yeah, well, and Arteaga and Trejo stuck on 15 and 17.
I guess that just means that Cal Jennings is going to have to score a hat trick against Pittsburgh to get back on track.
What a shock. Holy Lord.
The odds on that's $1 to win $1 million in that.
Yeah, it is.
100%.
You know, if Cal's on 2 goals and they're out skulking for another one, like Ordonez and Farrell would bracket him every step he took. One would have his hand on his left cheek and the other on his right cheek. That's it.
They would stand in front. They would stand behind him while Danny Rivera has duct taped himself to the backside, man marking him all over the pitch. Little did we know that the entire time Bob Lilly strapped both of his legs with cannonballs and chains.
You know, I've never thought about this because you start with strapped, to legs. The Jeff Van Gundy holding on to the player's leg. Bob Lilly holding to Cal Jennings' leg is a thought that just crossed my mind for the first time.
Meanwhile, from the sideline, Bob Lilly has gotten so upset, and this is a compliment, by the way. He's gotten so upset with the fact that they haven't been able to shut him down, and he feels like he's going to score a third. He went and got a corner flag, and he's standing there with the cannonball strapped to his legs, Danny Rivera duct taped to him, and the 2 center backs trailing, going, "Thou shalt not pass." And then is sent off because he's yelling at the 4th official with the corner flag.
And that's why
got out of the technical area.
That's why Jennings won't score against Pittsburgh, because that's their plan.
Just the brace, not
just a brace. Dev, let's chat about a couple of playoff races while we have a moment. Western playoff race, 4 clinched now: Sacramento, San Antonio, San Diego, and Phoenix. Orange County and Colorado Springs have a clear path to get it done this week. Notably, San Antonio's 2-2 draw, come from behind, get a point at the very end, the Oluwaseyi equalizer against Oakland, still likely seeds the path to the number 1 in the West to Sacramento. They gave up the 2 goals in like a minute and a half to Rodriguez and Pelaez. Far sent off. It's been called foul and abusive language. Sacramento leads the season series. So if Sac wins at this point one of their final 2 games at RGV versus Miami, they've got the tiebreaker. Done and dusted. Sacramento, the 1 seed. I think the intrigue comes at the line right now. 5 teams alive for 2 spots, all within 4 points, including a team at the bottom of that group that still has a game in hand. El Paso and Oakland will play the last day. Orange County and Monterey will play the last day. So you've got some seeding implications that'll come down the stretch. El Paso's on 43. They've got a game in hand. They play tomorrow, like you said, against San Diego. Then at Memphis, at Oakland. Oakland, Wednesday, at Orange County, at San Diego. Host El Paso is 1 point out of 7th, but above the line.
That is a schedule right there, by the way.
Brutal. And then you go below the line, right? Monterey, 2 games left, at Birmingham, host Orange County. New Mexico, 2 points off the line, at Phoenix, home on the Friday against Memphis. So they'll know going into the last day. And then RGV on 39 have 3 games left, and 2 of them are arguably the easiest that any of these teams have. At Hartford Wednesday, they'll host Sacramento. We'll see if Sacramento's dream goes to die. Then they host Loudoun. And they got their equalizer at Colorado Springs, 30-yard missile in 90+8 to stay within 4 points. Am I crazy for saying the schedule is so convenient for RGV that if they handle Hartford, they're a favorite to get a playoff spot?
I mean, we said last week that they should. Again, you say that very lightly because it's RGV and they haven't been able to stay on track. That we thought they would get 7 from the last 4. Well, the draw, Colorado Springs, that's out of the way.
Yep.
I mean, guaranteeing is something that scares me, but you would, in theory, guarantee at Hartford, home Loudon, there's your 6.
You do that, and you get anything?
Remove that point that's already on the table. 6 gets you to 45.
And let's not forget, El Paso and Oakland, one of them is going to cancel out the other if they fail to take points here in the next week.
But if they draw,
El Paso
goes to 44, which means in their final 2 games, they need a point. What's the tiebreaker what's the secondary tiebreaker?
In conference?
I don't know, Mike. I don't know if that's enough.
Yep.
El Paso be on 44. I have a hard time believing they're not going to get a point, which means it would be the tiebreaker between those two, right? It'd be a tiebreaker between El Paso and RGV.
Well, they'd need to get 2 points to get there. It's a 4-point difference right now. Then it comes to tiebreaker.
What? No, I know. What I'm saying is that virtually in the standings, if El Paso draws, they go to 44. Let's assume RGV gets the 6 in their final 3 games. They get the 6. RGV's on 45 points. El Paso, in their game tomorrow, they draw. They're at 44. El Paso's remaining 2 games, which you mentioned, at Memphis, at Oakland. Now, both on the road, I have a hard time believing that they're not going to get a point out of that.
Yeah,
which means you go to the tiebreaker. RGV beat its head-to-head. So if they get a point, and in the final 2, they go to 45. RGV beat them 5-2, and then they drew. Oh, wow. Okay. There's your
RGV's got your tiebreaker.
RGV's got the tiebreaker.
So realistically, for El Paso to clear RGV off their slate, that one win out of the 3, and that's enough.
A win out of the 3 gets them to 46 and call it a day.
Unless RGV shocks Sacramento, and then all of a sudden, now we've got a whole different set of math.
Mike, yes or no? Yes or no in their final 3 games? El Paso home to San Diego, at Memphis, at Oakland. Their best chance to get a win is home against San Diego.
Probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
And let's be honest.
Conveniently.
El Paso and Oakland could very easily be a pseudo playoff game to close out.
Yeah, I mean, I still maintain that I don't think Oakland's getting in, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, just the way the points lay out and what's left, there's a high likelihood that one of them with a win could get into the field and leave the other out.
But you know what's going to happen, right? El Paso's going to win 3 games in a row, go to 52 points. Everybody above him is going to lose. El Paso's going to get the 3rd spot.
By the way, we said 5 for 2. There's a 6th team down there, but Las Vegas is stuck looking for water in the middle of a desert. They're on 19 points. All they have to do is 2.5 exit, and they're there.
Does the E next to their name stand for empty?
Yeah, it feels that way.
Their emotions.
Weird week in the East playoff race. 6 are now clinched. Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, Charleston, Memphis, Louisville, Indy. Birmingham is 5 points up with 2 to go. High likelihood that they could figure out a way to get that done and even could back in if need be. Here's where we're at the line. 3 teams, in theory, 1 spot. Miami wins against Hartford. Detroit drops both their games, thrashed by the Switchbacks, and Indy 3-0 in each game. Tulsa lost to Pittsburgh. We're in not a terrible position at the tail end of that game. It finished 3-2. Miami has 2 road games left at Charleston, at Sacramento.
Good luck.
Brutal. Detroit finishes at Loudon, which, as we know, it's tougher to play there. And then host Pittsburgh, who could be trying to lock down the number 1 overall seed.
Good luck. Twice.
Tulsa host Indy and finish on a Friday night at Hartford.
Oh, yeah. That's the golden schedule.
It's the golden schedule.
Oh,
it's all there for Tulsa. It's all there.
Number 1, can we just talk about the fact, and I want a little credit here, for you and I,
Yeah.
Did we not say at the beginning of the season that those 7, not necessarily in that order, we're going to finish those 7? And we were going to talk about Miami, Detroit, and Tulsa?
I think we thought maybe Birmingham would be higher.
Oh, no. Thought they would be higher, but I'm saying
those 7.
That
sure.
7 up, we knew that would be in.
Yep.
Got it. Am I crazy for thinking I want Tulsa in this race?
No.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, before you get a comment in on that, you mentioned the Indy result on the weekend. Yeah, that's a destroyer of a goal in Phoenix. Our boy Sebastian Velasquez has quite the little cutback across for the Rocket in the upper corner. Give him some love there too. I'll take Tulsa in this race, Mike.
Yeah, it's starting to look that way. And here's the thing. If you're Indy, I don't know that Mark Lowry allows his players to ever get fat and happy, but they've run the race. They know they're the 6 or the 7. Honestly,
Do you care who you are?
You'd rather be the 6. I don't want any part of Tampa Bay or Pittsburgh.
I want to play Charleston. Absolutely.
Yep. All due respect to Charleston.
I don't. It's not that Charleston is bad. It's just I don't want to play at Pittsburgh, and I certainly don't want to play at the Rowdies. Right.
No. If I'm rolling dice, I'm rolling them against the Charleston team that finished bottom last year.
Also, and this is something that I remember too when you just said that. Remember when Indy, we thought maybe they kind of tweaked it a little bit and got it back on track? That was part of a run earlier this season. They beat Charleston 4-0 in Charleston.
They did. And Charleston's
they drew about, I don't know, 8 or 10 games back. So, I mean, you've got the mental win right there, walking into the Lions Den going, all right, boys, business as usual. Let's go.
Yep. Can't help but think if you're Indy right now, I think they've got it. I think they've got it figured out the way it's going to be this year. I also think they recognize that this is a 2-year build into a new stadium. I think that's got to be a little bit of the arithmetic here. And, if you make a little run this year, get a little excitement. I think there's real value in that.
You think that I paused there for a second.
The style that they play at the mic isn't probably conducive to the way that it was dreamt up by Mark Lowry.
No, of course not. He hates that place.
But in 1 year, they will be opening this palatial joint. They're in a huge transition space where it's just, I think being in the playoffs is a positive because I think you're building for something bigger.
And you think they need that sort of kind of assurance or momentum that it's not already there?
I think
it
doesn't hurt
it. It doesn't hurt it. Yeah,
I think it'd be a major positive given the way this started.
I think. See, and I get that. To me, more so, I just think it's the Lowry era.
Yeah,
I think the Mark Lowry era needs it to prove to them that, look, this project is where we need it to be. This is where we want it to be. I'm 2 years in. This is where we're going. I don't disagree with you for the stadium and to get people involved, but to me, it's more so the diehards and keeping that on track. And let's be frank, I'll be Devon, keeping an ownership group happy because that owner,
he expects big things.
He expects big things, and they
do not spend little money. They expect to win. Yeah. When we come back, a quick look ahead. Biggest match of the regular season, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay. And we'll walk you through it when we return here on USL All Access.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back to USL All Access, covering everything around the championship and beyond. Before we hit the last couple topics in mind, congrats to Alex Dixon. He's the 8th player in league history to 250 appearances. Dev, I'll spot you a little bit here, but I won't give it all. Name the teams he played for in the league. It is 5 after he finished at UNC, homegrown for the Dynamo, played in the NASL for Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, and then 5 teams in the league, 3 of which are currently playing. They are...
I got to reverse engineer it. So, obviously, he's with Monterey Bay now.
Yep.
Pittsburgh, prior to that. Hartford.
Yep. Here's the tough one.
Well, he was with Bob in Rochester.
That's true. In between Rochester and Hartford.
Here's the tough one, he says.
Clock's running out.
Oh. The White Puma. Jimmy Nielsen, OKC. Is that right?
That's it. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Devin, you have won absolutely flipping nothing. All right.
I love that. Favorite prize.
Loudoun United officially eliminated this week, Dev. Cal Jennings, the winner at Tampa Bay. I just want to get a quick thought. What did we expect out of this season? New ownership comes in. You look at the roster, how thin they got during the Open Cup. They make a nice run there. They add the loanees later, but usually it's the guys that you get from MLS teams. They were ousted from Open Cup or Leagues Cup, and then they come get games here. I don't know what their plan is necessarily, but I hope it includes Ryan Martin.
I would say the biggest thing for me is figuring out a way to depict what that plan is to the general public. It 100% has to be Ryan Martin, the guy in charge. He needs more of a budget, more of a vision, if you will. This is still a team that, how many games they win this year?
Not enough.
Well, obviously not enough, but this is a team that they won 11 in 2019.
Yep.
Right? They won 8 last year. They're
7.
And they're on 7 now. I expect them to win 12 next year.
All right.
12 gets you into the playoffs.
Ben Pearman, is he coach of the year again?
No, I don't know the answer to that. No, he is not.
It is who?
It's probably
bingo.
I would say that it's probably going to be Bob Lilly or Mark Briggs.
Okay.
It's my guess. I'm going to take the front runners. It sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. By the way, you and I did a little bit of digging on this. The only coach to ever win back-to-back Coach of the Years is who, Mike?
Inchy.
Yeah, Adrian Heath. Now at Minnesota United. It was with Orlando City back in 11 and 12, where basically they only lost, in theory, one game, which is 2012 final, which they weren't even there.
True enough. Dev, biggest regular season match of the year, likely decides the regular season champion, Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay on Saturday, ESPN+. Here's what you need to know. Rowdies win or Riverhounds clinch number 1 because they would have the tiebreaker. Win for the Riverhounds assures the number 1 seed over Sacramento. Rowdies, 10-1-1 at home since May 1st. The Riverhounds are 13-1-3 in the league and had their Open Cup run on home ground as well. Enormous game. Half a minute thought on it.
I would just say overall that this is, for me, it's probably going to be more of the mental side of things, maintaining the emotion that this game is not going to overwhelm you and it's not going to overtake your season. You have to find a way to stay on track. Tactically, right now, you know where you're at. You know Pittsburgh can sit in. You know they can hold possession and attack, that Danny Griffin and Robbie Mertz are going to help control the midfield. I still want to see how much of a risk Pittsburgh on the back line is willing to take here because of how good Tampa Bay Rowdies are, or how good they've gotten in transition, Mike. All that space in behind, you get Cal Jennings, you get JJ Williams running. That is going to be an issue.
Dev, mailbag?
Mailbag is going to be, we're going to read this right here. Why don't we have some sort of VAR in USL? It was tested for in USL 7 years ago. People rudimentary, blah, blah, blah. Why don't we have it, Mike?
Cash. Straight cash, homie.
Straight cash, homie. You want it? You got it? They ain't got it? They ain't got it.
We have the technology. Also, I kind of appreciate that we don't have it. I know that's a terrible take, but I do. Dev, you learn anything in this show?
I learned that I need to make sure that I call Microsoft. My computer's acting up.
Yeah. I learned that you're a series of green and purple bars here today. Also learned that Devon, much bigger than your average 13-year-old. For Devon and Emmett, Mike, thanks for listening. Talk to you next Tuesday. Final weekend of the regular season to come. So long for now.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SiriusXM app.